Today, we are diving deep into some of history's most mind-bending mysteries. We're talking about 5 ancient warnings that came true with such shocking accuracy, they really make you wonder.
I mean, that's the big question, right? Are these just wild coincidences, a one-in-a-million shot? Or could there be something more going on?
Well, history is absolutely packed with these uncanny moments. So we're going to open the case files on 5 of the most compelling ones, from sacred texts to cryptic oracles, and see just how specific and how chillingly accurate these predictions actually were. All right, let's kick things off in the 7th century. Our first case involves a prophecy from the Quran that predicted a military comeback that, well, at the time, seemed completely and utterly impossible. Just think about how specific that is for a second. It's not just saying, oh, something will happen. It's laying out a very precise sequence of events. First, you'll get crushed, but don't worry, right after that, you're going to turn it all around and win. So here's how it all went down. Around 614 AD, things were looking grim for the Byzantine Romans. I mean, they were on the verge of total collapse, getting absolutely steamrolled by the Persians. But then, just over a decade later, Emperor Heraclius pulls off this incredible, daring counterattack. The Persian Empire just crumbles, and boom, the Romans had overcome their enemies, exactly as predicted, within a few years. It's pretty wild. Okay, so a military victory is one thing. But what about our next case? This one involves a prophecy about the total, complete annihilation of a massive, secret building, the very heart of an entire culture. This is the warning that Jesus is said to have given about the magnificent Second Temple in Jerusalem. I mean, can you imagine hearing that? The absolute center of your world wouldn't just be damaged or fall into disrepair, but would be so completely leveled that not one stone would be left on another. It must have sounded insane. And you know what's really incredible here? The time gap. This prediction was made around 30 AD. 40 years later, a whole generation passes, and it all comes true. In 70 AD, the Roman legions, led by General Titus, sacked Jerusalem after a really brutal siege. And they didn't just set it on fire and leave. No, historical accounts tell us that the soldiers tore it down to its very foundations, prying the stones apart. They literally left not one stone on another. The fulfillment was just as absolute as the prediction itself. From a building turned to dust, we now turn to an entire city cast into the sea. This is an Old Testament prophecy with a bizarrely physical fulfillment, and the person who carries it out? Oh, just one of the greatest conquerors in all of history. So the prophet Ezekiel delivers this message against the super powerful port city of Tyre. But you gotta notice that strange detail. It's not just that the city would be destroyed. It's that its rubble, its very ruins, would be thrown into the water. How weird is that? Now, the fulfillment of this one is fascinating because it happened in 2 parts, separated by more than 200 years. First up, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon comes in and conquers the mainland part of Tyre. But the city's main stronghold, this fortress on a nearby island, he couldn't touch it. So the prophecy was kinda stuck, only halfway done. And then, in 332 BC, along comes Alexander the Great. To get to that island fortress, he does something nobody had ever thought of. He scrapes up all the rubble, all the debris from the old mainland city, and uses it to build a land bridge, a causeway, out to the island. He literally tossed Tyre into the sea without even knowing he was fulfilling the strangest detail of a centuries-old prophecy. Okay, we've talked about prophets. Now let's move on to priestesses. We're heading to ancient Greece and the famous oracle at Delphi for a very cryptic warning that led a super wealthy king to his complete and utter downfall. So this was the message given to King Croesus of Lydia right before he was about to go to war with Persia. Now, you hear that, and it sounds pretty good, right? It sounds like a green light, a promise that you're gonna win big. But there's the catch. Which empire? The oracle's riddle hinged on that one single fatal ambiguity. So, feeling super confident that he was about to destroy the Persian Empire, Croesus attacked. And the tragic irony? He crossed the river, and a great empire was destroyed, his own. The oracle was 100% correct. The king's own ambition just led him to hear the answer he wanted to hear, sealing his own doom. For our final case, let's jump way forward in time to the 16th century and to maybe the most famous and debated seer of all time, Nostradamus. He wrote these cryptic 4-line poems called quatrains, and in one of them, he says this. Now, let's be honest, a lot of his stuff is super vague and could mean anything. But the specific details here, they're pretty striking. The city, London, in the year 66. Nostradamus published this little poem in 1555. More than 100 years later, in 1666, the Great Fire of London happens, a massive, catastrophic event that totally reshaped the city. And you can bet people made the connection almost immediately. And the scale of that fire was just immense. We're talking over 13,000 homes destroyed. Now, of course, skeptics rightly point out that Nostradamus' language is almost always vague. But believers, they argue that mentioning London and the year 66 in the same breath is just too specific to be a simple coincidence. So let's just pull back for a second and look at what we've covered. An impossible military comeback, a sacred temple leveled to its foundations, a city's rubble literally thrown into the sea, a king doomed by a riddle he misunderstood, and a great fire linked to a city and a year, a century in advance. Which brings us right back to where we started. Are these stunning examples of ancient foresight, like messages echoing through time? Or are they just history's most extraordinary, mind-blowing coincidences? I'll leave that one for you to decide.